Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. I'm going to start off with the forum. If you haven't signed up and you'd like to ask a question, you can sign up a username. Just send it to your email address and you can post a question. Try to deal with all these questions. Of course, they're always excellent questions. I learn a lot from the questions, so I wanted to start with a couple questions tonight. First one from George Silver, and that's silver compared with Bitcoin. Dear Brother John, when you talk about silver, you invariably compare the price to the US dollar. Would it be possible to compare silver to a real currency that is free from manipulation, such as Bitcoin? It would be nice to see silver compared to Bitcoin regularly. Well, that's a pretty bold statement there. There's someone who's really confident in Bitcoin. I think Da Vinci is as well. We're definitely going to see at least the idea whether it succeeds. I would say for someone who's very creative, maybe they could start doing that. Start maybe an exchange chart service and track those prices. Everything does seem to be tracked in US dollars. I think that that era is coming to an end. What will it be tracked in? Is it going to be special drawing rights? Is it going to be Chinese renminbi? Is it going to be a basket? Who knows? I don't know the future, but it's an interesting idea. Next question is Tantalum. Hi, brother John F. This is from No Sira HX. Like silver, this metal is consumed by modern electronics. Look up tantalum capacitors if you're not familiar with it. And is likely not being recycled at anywhere near the rate it is being consumed. Like silver, this metal also has many other uses due to its amazing physical properties and it is somewhat rare. While this metal is likely a poor choice for physical bullion, there are a few overpriced options out there. I'm thinking that investing in it by other means, mining components, might be a good idea for some of the same reasons that silver is. What are your thoughts about investing in this metal? On a related note, Kazakhstan actually has a silver/tantalum bimetal coin series. Interesting. I did not know that. Now, I've looked at a lot of these other metals. I've looked at the big four are going to be silver, gold, platinum, and palladium. I've examined them all, especially in 2008. I did a lot of analysis about the price collapses in the various metals, and I've actually purchased in the past. I've purchased Pamp Swiss, palladium, and I've purchased gold and silver, and I don't believe I've ever purchased platinum. Platinum was a pretty good bottom there in 2008, but every time I look at any of the other metals, and then I look at the fundamentals, and then I look at the price, I always have to come back to silver. It's just it's the most underpriced. So yes, tantalum is tantalizing when you look at some of these things, but silver is even more superior. So gonna have to stick with silver on that one, although it's interesting. I think ultimately all the precious metals are going to go up in price. So that takes me over to the NetDania chart of the night, and it's provided by netdania.com. You can click on the link below. This is the gold price. Now what I've done here, and this will be the topic for the rest of the night, is I'm trying to establish what type of pattern we're looking at here. A couple of things that stand out. The first thing that caused me to draw this is the crossover now in the MACD, which you can see there's a parallel here, and there's one here, and there's one here that I've drawn. So I've tried to draw a couple of things here to indicate where we may be going. Again, no one knows the future. And then document the price changes. You can see this first trend line here, and we probably want to take it off deletion. You see the first trend line here. I've drawn it from here to here. Now these are not hard and fast numbers. None of these are hard and fast. You can draw them as you like. The number series is open to debate. So these are just the points that I picked. Someone else may disagree. So we've got a roughly 3-year period from 300 to 400. We've got another roughly 3-year period from about 400 to 800, and another roughly little more than 3-year period from 700 to 1900. Now, I've documented the percentage rise, doing a very rough calculation with a calculator. Again, if you want to do the math and do perfect math, do your own numbers. Mine are just rough estimates. So the first 3-year period, a rise from 300 to 400, is about 8% per year rise. And then we had really not much of a correction at all. If you look back on the chart, it's hardly visible. The next period you can see ended in the 2008 period. We got a 400 to 800 run. That comes in at about 25%. Now, that's roughly triple percentage-wise. And what was the rise before this? I don't know. Is this a parabolic series? Is this a Fibonacci series? We're going to look at those definitions and how they stack up, and you can make up your own mind. The next series is this 3-year series from 700 to 1900, and that comes to about 40% per year. So 8 and 25 comes to about 33. So not quite a Fibonacci sequence, but looking something like that. And so I wanted to jump over to first we're going to start with the parabolic definition, because these are the two ideas that we're looking at here. Try to figure out what we're going into with the price of gold. And of course, the price of silver, I think, is going to follow. Now, this is first the parabolic. This is from Decision Point, and this is a simple definition. This is based on stocks, but it pretty much applies to all markets. One chart pattern to watch for is the parabolic. This is a reference to what is also called accelerated growth phase. After a stock breaks out from a long basing pattern, it will sometimes enter a rapid growth phase with a series of ever steepening rising trend lines. Now that's what we see here. Now this last trend line that I have is actually a projection, and that's based on this angle and the angle here and the angle here. So I pretty much just moved that angle out into the future, and we'll see the projected rise for this next 3-year period, if that's what it is, based on whether it's a Fibonacci or parabolic sequence, and then we'll make some projections. So back to Decision Point, they say it's ever steepening rising trend lines. Often acceleration of price appears as a parabolic curve on the price chart, and sometimes the final stages of the move will climax with a leg that is virtually straight up. Parabolics almost always collapse. Sometimes there's a bit of topping followed by a controlled but precipitous decline, but other times the straight up move reverses into a straight down move of equal or greater magnitude. The chart below is a good example of parabolic rise followed by a collapse, and we get a rise in the price of the GE stock, and then it collapsed. Once a parabolic is broken down, prices will sometimes return to the level where the parabolic rise began. This is most common with bubble stocks that were bid up on hype rather than substance. The best example of this is many of the internet stocks that rose to glory then disappeared from view forever. Another possible outcome is that the stock loses a substantial amount of its gain and then enters a high-level consolidation. This is what appears to be happening with the GE chart, and this is, of course, from 05, and I think GE is around 20 right now. So that's the parabolic. Now the other one that's important is the Fibonacci series sequence, and this is observed in nature a lot. This is an image of a hurricane, and you can see that this is clearly a Fibonacci sequence. Fibonacci sequence is pretty simple. It's a number series where you just add the two numbers prior and you get the next number. So 0 and 1 is 1, 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 1 is 3, 2 and 3 is 5, etc. So this number series, as it grows, it's represented as this spiral. Now you can see if you turn the spiral upside down, I don't have one here, but if we turn this spiral image upside down, then you have something like the gold chart that we're looking at here. So is this the beginning of a parabolic rise? Is this the beginning of a Fibonacci type rise? Now the difference is that Fibonacci goes into a spiral. it's quite clear that any type of time sequence of prices can't go into a spiral, because that means that you would be moving backwards in time. Obviously, that can't happen. But if you remember, Warren Buffett mentioned that gold was the last bubble. If you remember, immediately after Warren Buffett stated that, he was quoted in many of the press announcements as saying gold is in a bubble. But as I pointed out recently, that the statement about gold being a barbarous relic is not actually true. That was a statement about the gold standard being a barbarous relic, not gold itself. Similarly, the press frequently misquotes people, and Warren Buffett was misquoted. Warren Buffett said that gold would be the last bubble. So it does appear that there is some type of Fibonacci or parabolic rise shaping up here with gold. If this is the bottom, and we'll just call it 1500, or it might be up here at 1600, you can see we drew from the bottom on the last series. We're not sure if we're going lower. I don't think so, based on the patterns that we've seen before, but if we do, then we'll have to start at a lower number. If this is indeed a Fibonacci sequence, this number is actually a third of this number, and then we add those two together and we get close to this number, but not quite as close. So if it's approaching that, then we could add this number to this number, and we would be looking at a 65% rise per year for the next 3 years. If it's a higher number, as this pattern has been more parabolic than that, then it could be a number as high as, say, 70%. Let's just go with that number, and we'll go with 1500. So if we did that and we had another 3-year rise, then we would be talking about $1,500 times 1.7 for 3 years. So first, second, and third year, that's a projection of the next topping price of $7,369 an ounce for gold. If we use that same percentage and say our bottom in silver is 27, then that type of rise in silver, which I actually think silver will rise higher, would be projecting $132 price per ounce, 3 years for silver. And that I don't know what that ratio is as far as gold to silver ratio. So that's interesting. If I think we can multiply times 50 and see what we get. And so that would maintain the ratio. If the ratio compresses, then you could get double that or even more so. So that's the Fibonacci and parabolic sequences. It seems to me that we are approaching the next leg of what is either a parabolic rise or the beginning of some type of Fibonacci type of rise. This is a Fibonacci rise according to the article that this was lifted from. This is a chart of Microsoft when it went through its phenomenal rise. I don't think anybody can deny the impact that Microsoft and Apple, of course, as well, but the impact of the PC and software on the world, and that has been an incredible impact. No one can probably even document how big of an impact it has been, but you can see that we had a rise from what looks to be 0 basically in this stock to 10, and one very well could have said when it reached 10 that that was it. It probably had moved 100-fold at that point, and then of course from 10 it went another 6-fold from there over the next course of years. So it's very difficult to pick a top in a parabolic rise, because for the parabola to continue, it just needs to rise back to that curving line, and that could be a much, much higher price in the future if it moves rapidly. That could be what we're going to see for gold. It also could be what we're going to see for silver. With silver, a lot of people have come to the conclusion that silver has already completed a parabolic or Fibonacci rise and that it's in a crash phase, but I'm not convinced of that. We may actually be looking at the beginning of another one of these rises. If the rise is going to mimic that, it's hard to draw on the chart. It's hard to say, but it would have to project a price that's so much higher to come back and meet with this curve that it may even be higher than what my price projections are showing. So that's the Fibonacci and parabolic price moves. What we're going to be looking at in gold and silver, we don't know yet, but it may be 6,000 to 7,000 on gold over the next 3 years, and it may be 100 to 150 on silver in the next 3 years. And we'll talk to you next time.